What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You know it's Saturday. You know I got another Piers Morgan debate coming in for you guys, so you gotta love it. Stay tuned. We're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about Russia. We're talking about conflict, crisis all over the world, so, you know, get prepared for that, if you will. But before we get into the video, before we get into the debate, I need you guys to do me a big favor. Smash that like button for me. I really need your help, y'all. Smashing that like button helps out a lot. Sharing this video anywhere and everywhere you can helps out the most. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you know. Come check me out. You know, all I do is try to show you how you're being manipulated by the corporate press and by the mainstream news. So that's what I'm generally about. I love doing debate videos on Saturday. This is where I get the most traction. I don't do these constantly, even though they get a lot more views than my normal videos do. I just do this for fun, just because I love doing this. I love interjecting myself into the conversation because we all need to have conversations, right? Right. So y'all do me that favor, subscribe if you're new around here. That is a really, really good way to help me out as well. But without any further ado, here we go.
I'm just going to have a quick break to speak to the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, General Wesley Clark. General, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Oh, happy to be here, Piers. I'm listening to this panel. Look, there's a lot of misinformation. I was in Ukraine on the 31st of March. I went through Maidan. I talked to the people. I looked at the lamppost where Putin's henchmen had killed a bunch of Ukrainians. There were a bunch of bullets still embedded in the lamppost. I followed it very, very closely. I don't know exactly what you want to talk about. If I'd been on your panel, I would have probably disagreed with most of them. The people in Ukraine are fighting for democracy. NATO didn't push itself to the borders. It was drawn to the borders by the people in Eastern Europe who wanted freedom. They wanted freedom from Russian oppression. That's why NATO expanded in response to them, not because NATO wanted to expand. It's because in order to stabilize, you had to be able to provide investment, and to get investment, people needed security, and they were living in fear of Russia coming back. Now, when did Putin decide to come back? As soon as he became president in 1999, at the speech he made in the inauguration of President Kuchma in Ukraine. Putin said, "Ukraine and Russia, we're more than brothers. We're in each other's souls." Poland sent its national security advisor to see me after that, said, "He's trying to restore the Soviet Union. He's coming after us." So this is a long-held ambition by Mr. Putin, and he's seen weakness in the West repeatedly. And that weakness has encouraged him to move, and it's going to continue until the West shows strength. And that strength means providing much more to Ukraine, bringing Ukraine into NATO, and saying to Mr. Putin very directly, look, stop. We're not interested in strategic arms discussions. We're not interested in investing in your economy. We're not interested in having nice conversations in Switzerland with you until you pull back, return the children, account for the inductees, bring to trial the war criminals that have been indicted in Ukrainian courts, and you owe us close to $1 trillion in destruction of our country. So, Piers, these are very clear lines. This is 1937, 1938. And you would have heard the same kind of apologists for Hitler. You would have heard them saying the peace in Versailles was unfair, and the French, and there's corruption and so forth. There's corruption in every government. It's there in your government. It's there in the United States. It's there in Ukraine, but it's never the same as it is in Russia.
You know, there's something with all these war hawks. You got to give them a little bit of credit for their tenacity in their ability, if you will, to be able to sell to the American people the idea of the United States as the global hegemony. That, oh, we need to control everything. We need to be the world police. We need to force Putin to comply with our demands. Now, this side of the argument that I am on, it's an uphill battle, if you will. One, Putin is the aggressor in all this, right? He looks like the aggressor. However, NATO expansion has essentially forced his hand, if you will. Not necessarily. It's not the entirety of the situation, right? Now, I've explained this out several times, and I'll break this all down. It's just part of the picture here. It's just part of the idea. A little bit of NATO expansion. Always says, we don't need to do this. Well, they had a choice back in the day. They had a choice. NATO expansion or peace. Try to work with Russia. And according to these people, it was Russia that said, no, we're not going to comply with you. No, we're going to do what we want to do. Well, how do we know that? We can't ever tell what goes on behind closed doors in these meetings with all these people. But if you look at the situation on the ground, right, I just don't think that NATO expansion doesn't play a role. That's what these people are trying to say. And then if you counter that, right, like you come out and say that, well, we're the ones that expanded. We're the ones that are doing all that, right? That's Russian propaganda. That's always the line. It's always, they're just apologists. And then he wants to invoke 1937. This is totally different situation, right? You cannot compare this to pre-World War II and what Germany was doing in Europe. You can't compare. They're just not the same thing. They're not the same people. They're not the same culture, not the same economy. It's a totally different time. It's the situation itself may look similar on its surface, right? An invasion. Well, that's just surface level thinking, right? It goes well beyond that. There's all kinds of other things. And, these people they'll try to sell you a bill of goods that, if he's allowed, like, what do you mean allow? Who is the world police here? Who stops somebody else from doing any of these things? Is it the United States? Are we supposed to be? Where is the mandate from the world that says we're supposed to be the world police? I don't ever see that. I don't see that in the UN Charter. I don't see that in our Constitution. I don't see that in any other constitution or anything from any other country ever, right? They may come to us and ask us for help, but at some point, we cannot help the entire world. We have to let things be how they are. I just don't see this idea that we have to supply the bullets and the tanks and the fighter jets and the missiles and everything else. Everything. I don't see where it's incumbent upon us to defend your democracy. Now, the argument is that, we have no soldiers on the ground. We have no boots on the ground whatsoever. Does that matter? Do you really think that matters? Now, when you look at it, you take a step back from that. How does that look? You got our politicians over here like, no, we'll help you fight to the bloody end without sacrificing any of our soldiers. Does that sound like the world police to you? Do the police go in to break up a fight and then say, your buddy's over here fighting, you step in and break up the fight? I'm just going to watch from the side. I'm going to help you. I'm going to cheer you on. That's not what the police do. The police go in themselves and break up the fight. That's essentially what we're doing. We're telling Ukraine, right? They're talking about they're fighting for their independence. Well, you can say that, and I can see that argument, to be honest with you, because Putin did invade. And that's why I say this is an uphill battle. Because how do you argue against that? Right? That's the question. But let's keep going.
Where organized crime works as an arm of the government connected to the intelligence agencies to assure that Putin and his cronies get what they want. So I think it's a very difficult time. I don't know how the negotiations are going to turn out, but I would tell you this, that Mr. Trump's in a tough position, because if he gives Putin what he wants, he looks weak to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And if he looks to the rest of the world, China's going to move. We've got in the United States a window now to do something in the Middle East, and I think Netanyahu probably will ask Mr. Trump to do it and pose a choice for the Iranian regime: either knock off the hegemonial aspirations and shut down this arc of resistance, including the weapons to the Houthis, or face the consequences. With Iran, you have to go to the source. With Russia, you have to stand firm. We've had deterrence in place for 70 years. We have nuclear weapons. Putin doesn't want to use a nuclear weapon. He's afraid of nuclear weapons, but he's using them to threaten. So people like your bearded guy whose name I didn't get, these are people who are repeating Russian talking points. It's exactly what the woman from Ukraine said. Now, I will tell you that people in Ukraine are suffering, and they would love an end to this conflict. They didn't choose it. It was forced on them. But the only way it's going to be successfully resolved is by strong U.S. leadership. And Mr. Trump is in a position where no matter what he said about ending the war in 24 hours, he's in a position where he simply cannot and will not concede everything that Putin wants. He won't do it. If he does, you won't make America great again. You'll invite war elsewhere in the world.
So that's something I happen to agree with him. Okay, Trump is in a very, very difficult position because how do you negotiate this, right? Putin's already came in, he's already got the territory, blah, blah, blah. You get it, right? You know the situation on the ground. How does Trump come in, resolve this situation, and allow Ukraine to retain the territory, their own territory, for crying out loud? This is going to be a difficult position. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure how Trump's going to get this accomplished. He's certain that he can do it, or at least he gives off the air of certainty, right? He said, I can have this resolved in 24 hours. I don't know if that's going to happen, but, you know, that's part of Trump. It's an exaggeration, so don't take him too literally on that. Obviously, you're not going to have this resolved in 24 hours. Now, what I do believe is he will get this resolved, and I do believe there is a route to get this resolved where Ukraine retains their territory, push Russia back out, right? But there has to be some economic give and take on this. You got to have some compromise here. I believe the entire reason Putin came in is because he wants a land bridge. I've bought into that, right? I see this. He had the impetus that, oh, NATO expansion, and there's all this genocide going on in the southern regions. Maybe they can work together, have an autonomous zone. I don't know. You know, I don't have the solution, but I do think there is a solution there. You give Russia some sort of access to the Black Sea right there, access to Crimea. I think everybody can be unhappy, if you will, with the results, right? Because you got to give Russia something. I don't know why, and I don't know how this goes down, like I said, but they're on the top of the hill, essentially. Russia is. They're dug in. They're not going anywhere without some concessions. That's the reality on the ground. That's not very nice. Now, what would I like to see? That's not what I feel should happen. Personally, I think Russia should be forced out and then Putin be brought in to the ICC, have some kind of war tribunal. Hey, you can't do this. You can't just invade a sovereign nation. There needs to be reparations, blah, blah, blah. You get it. But do I think that's going to happen? That's a dream world, right? I think he's an evil scumbag. Putin is, for invading. You know, given NATO expansion, blah, 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 whatever. That doesn't give you the excuse to invade, right? I heard it put this way, and I kind of use this analogy. Sometimes you see two people fighting, right? A guy shoves somebody else. The other guy pulls out a knife. You know, that's no excuse for pulling out that knife. Getting shoved is not an excuse to invade, right? NATO expansion is not an excuse to invade. However, the other side of this is what these people are arguing, is that we need to just send all this money that's purchased on credit, right? We're issuing debt to give these people, and their argument is, oh, well, we're just supplying the industrial complex. We're just giving ourselves all the new stuff and sending Ukraine the old stuff. I still don't think there's any argument here to be made that when you see two people fighting, you don't try to help one side because the other guy started it, right? You go in and try to break it up. Sorry, I flipped that backwards. It happens sometimes. But you don't see two people fighting and then go and start assisting somebody else because, oh, the other guy started it. Who cares? It doesn't matter. You got two belligerents right here. They need to be non-belligerent at this point. They need to stop fighting. it's not incumbent upon us to help the side that we think is justified, the righteous track, if you will. I don't think it's incumbent upon us. I think as the world's police, you do what police do, and you go in and stop the fight. But let's keep going.
So, but General Clark, the question I wanted to ask you, and you know how much I respect you, and we have a relationship before. And by the way, the audience should know, General Clark is the one that called out the neocons for trying to invade 7 countries at once, including the Iraq War. And so he's earned a lot of respect by doing that. But General Clark, this is a genuine question, which is, okay, but if we go with what you're saying, how long do we fight? How long does Ukraine fight? How much money do we spend? How many years of war do we have to endure? And what if Ukraine just doesn't win? So let's say we go another 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. How do we resolve it if Ukraine can't win?
Well, I think what you have to do is understand that this war will go on until Putin believes he can't win. So all the discussion in the West about how to preemptively surrender territory and all this it all feeds Putin's appetite. He understands from all this discussion that the West is weakening in its will, and therefore if he just keeps shoving soldiers forward, that eventually the West will comply and cut off assistance to Ukraine and tell Ukraine, good luck, hope you enjoy being part of Poland again, because that's his aim. He doesn't really care about Lviv. What he wants is the north coast of the Black Sea and Odessa, and of course Kharkiv and Kyiv and so forth, and then he wants the rest of Europe, Eastern Europe, that used to be under Soviet dominion. He needs this in order to be able to confront China, and this is the ultimate fear of Russia and its leadership. And they know they can't confront China unless they have control over Eastern Europe, including the Baltics and Poland, and the rest of the Balkan Peninsula. And so it's a long-term geostrategic game. And Jink, I just tell you this: there's no American soldiers over there getting killed, and most of the money that's been appropriated by the United States has gone to buy new weapons in the United States. We're giving them the old stuff, the old ATACMS. We've just recently even reprioritized our military sales program. We're still selling ATACMS to Morocco. Now, why does Morocco need 60 ATACMS? I don't know. But we're selling stuff off Patriots all over the world. That stuff should go to Ukraine. As long as the United States stands firm, we won't have nuclear weapons and nuclear war. Putin doesn't want it either. But he does believe right now that we will collapse, and he will continue to threaten the nuclear and play the nuclear card, because that's the way the Russians play it. And so you just have to stand firm against it. And you need strong leadership, and you need the American people behind you. And what you have to understand is that Putin understands how to manipulate public opinion. In every country in Europe, there are people there saying, just like one of the gentlemen on this panel said, this is crazy, and people are getting killed, and I'm tired of seeing people dying, and we've got to have peace. In 1937, 38, in Europe, everybody had fresh memories of the First World War. It was a horrible experience. A whole generation of British young men were wiped out. The French got so bad that in one group of French divisions, they pulled out every 10th soldier and shot him for cowardice. Nobody wanted a repeat of the First World War. And so Hitler occupied the Rhineland against instruction. Hitler rearmed. Hitler rebuilt the military. And at every stage, there were people who said, well, this is really dangerous, but please, we can't think about it. It can't be another world war. So we're revisiting this in a slightly different form today. If we believe in democracy, if we believe in what we set up, if we believe in the lessons we learned from the Second World War, then we've got to stand firm against Mr. Putin. President Biden should have said to him, look, bud, you come after Ukraine, I promise you, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. But he didn't say that. And he's never said that.
No, he hasn't.
That's the policy has to start.
Okay. General, thank you.
You might notice something a bit shocking. Don't know if you think about this or thought about this, but yet Cenk Uygur was on the panel, and almost none of this video has to do anything with Cenk Uygur. I happen to agree with him right there. Like the premise of his idea, how long are we supposed to supply weapons to Ukraine? How come we're not trying to stop the fighting? Now, I love how this guy agrees with me a little bit on this, that Putin wants his land bridge. But for some reason, he thinks that if we cede territory, if Ukraine cedes territory to Russia, that somehow that will embolden Putin to roll into NATO. I don't understand this idea. It's a psychotic, it's like they're having some sort of mental breakdown here. Do you really think he thinks that's a good idea? Nobody would think that. Any logical, rational thinking person to think that Putin would just roll into NATO territory is absurd. Just absurd. The entirety, just not on his face, the entirety of that idea, that the prospect that him rolling into NATO. Right, really? And this is these people trying to sell us a bill of goods that is bunk. It's expired. It's rotten. It's no good. When you think about it past its surface level, right? He's tugging on your emotional strings here, trying to invoke World War II. It's garbage. It's all garbage. Don't buy into it. How come these people aren't trying to stop this thing? Because the military-industrial complex says no. We need to be supplied with fresh money. And that's what this is all about. There has to be some sort of war for the military-industrial complex to stay relevant. I think that's what's driving most of this. Why do I say that? Well, we had some peace negotiations 6 months after this thing started. And what did we do? We said, screw it, we're going to fight Russia to the bloody end. That's when, everybody in opposition to this was a Putin propagandist. That's when that came out. I just don't understand. China's going to roll into Taiwan if we allow it. No, China was going to do that anyway. It has nothing to do with Russia. It has nothing to do with us. China wants to do that anyway. Has nothing to do with us, right? This whole idea that, this allowed dictators all over the world to just start invading. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Not with Trump coming in, at least. Now, he is right about something. I think Biden should have been a lot more tough with Putin, but he wasn't. He was weak because he projected weakness, and he got us into this. And that's going to take Trump to try to get us out of this thing, and it's putting Trump in a very, very, very tough situation. Very tough situation. This is almost a no-win situation. There is a road out of this. There's a pathway. I'm not sure that I know it, but there's got to be. There's got to be some sort of compromise we can come to. But I'm just not sold. I don't think I can ever be sold on the idea that we need to just continually supply weapons to Ukraine so they can defend democracy. That's not a democracy. I'm sorry. There's way too much corruption. There's way too much U.S. involvement over there for us to say that's an independent nation. No. I'm sorry. They're not a democracy. Right? I don't think them joining NATO, more NATO expansion is not the answer here. Right? This is part of the problem. NATO expansion. Instead of trying to export peace, we've exported military treaties, defense pacts, and, fear, essentially. Fear of NATO. You don't comply with our hegemony, we'll just send in NATO. We'll send in the troops. I don't think that's a good way for the world police to act. You don't go and bully people, right? That's essentially what we're doing. All in the name of peace around the world, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the way to get to peace under that doctrine is force these nations to comply with the United States. I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the way to go. I don't see why there has to be conflict in any of this. And these people's ideas, I can't buy into them. I'm sorry. There has to be another way than us just continually supplying weapons. I know I'm harping on that, but it's just, I don't know, it blows my mind that these people don't look at history and see that, we're trying to repeat history here. That once tensions start to escalate, escalating those tensions even further only leads to more escalation. History shows this. That by coming out all strong, then they're just going to feel emboldened to come out and call our bluff. Somebody has to back down first. And then we can go to the negotiating table. But until somebody does that, it's just, it's a pissing contest at this point to see who will back down first. And why does it have to be a back down? Why can't we just say, look, all right, we've got a situation here. Let's work this thing out. Figure up some sort of way, right? Because Russia lost the soft power battle. They did. They lost the soft power battle, sending in people or whatever to try to control economics. That's what most of this is all about. It's all about resources, right? Russia wants access to that Black Sea. Why can't they have some access to that Black Sea? Why can't there be an international pipeline to run through there, economically speaking, in other words, right? That's Russia's concern. Opening up Ukraine to the EU and into NATO puts NATO on their borders, but it also floods Russia with goods from Europe. They lose economically if this happens. That's their fear. They want access. They want to control the economy, their sphere of influence, if you will. Isn't that what we're doing? That's all I'm saying. Isn't that what we're doing? And that's where this whole thing comes from. Once again, NATO expansion and economic control of the area. Russia just wants to prosper. Now, I will say, he's going about it in the wrong way. I think we need to come to a concession where, Putin either needs to calm down or he's got to go. You can't have it any other way. He needs to back off with all this military action, because it's not just Ukraine, right? It's Georgia, Moldova, that whole area. It's just insane, some of the actions Russia has taken. But it also shows fear. Fear of being irrelevant, economically speaking. Well, hey, I think there's area right there. We can expand upon that. Work together with Russia. Why does it have to be conflict? That's what I don't get. Why does it always have to be a pissing contest with these people? I just don't get it, but, I think I've made my point clear, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close right fast, but I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section, because I think there is another way, and I do believe Trump will find that direction. I think he can find a path out of this that doesn't involve an endless funding of war. That's all I'm saying. But let me know what you think. That's all I got for this one. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. And share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, because these ideas need to be brought to the forefront. We need to work these ideas out so we can all get behind peace, if you will. Get behind, working together with the entirety of the world, for crying out loud. But that's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it if you're still around. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.